Hey Dubsado, thanks so much for tuning in and having me as a guest today. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to speak to you all about customizing your Dubsado forms through a little code. My name is Colin Tierney, and I run a branding boutique called Tierney Studio, specializing in logo, identity, hand lettering, and calligraphy. I'm the founder of Crayligraphy, which is a site dedicated to teaching the ins and outs of calligraphy, but with a little bit of a twist. Instead of learning with the all too intimidating traditional calligraphy instruments, such as dip pens, fountain pens, brush pens, I show beginners how to create beautiful letter forms with those magical little broadline markers that we all grew up with. It's a fun, cheap, and easy way to learn the ancient art of penmanship. I'm a fairly new adopter of Dubsado. I've been with them for a little over a year now, and I have to say it's been nothing short of amazing for me and my business. I stumbled upon Dubsado after my wife was due to give birth to our third child, about to be outnumbered in the gremlin category. That's what I call my children. Lindsay, my wife, could no longer dedicate as much time to the business with responding to inquiries and planning in-person events for Crayligraphy workshops. So I needed some automated help. Cue Dubsado. After going through the rounds of different CRM trials, I decided to go all in with Dubsado. From my experience, there was nothing else out there quite like it. From the workflows, the scheduling, the client correspondence, and organization, Dubsado sold me. But most importantly, Dubsado's forms and their customizations they allowed through that little magical code block. This code block provided a way for me to turn generic forms into a system that related directly back to my visual brand. The prospect client transition from my platform, my website, to Dubsado's platform is now seamless, creating brand recognition, trust, and ultimately a great experience. And while coding wasn't something I specialized in at the time, I had a lot of experience with it through my years of school and tinkering with my website to make it look and perform exactly the way I wanted it to be. After sharing one of my forms within Dubsado's Facebook community, it received a lot of engagement. So much so that I decided to write a few tutorials to show other Dubsado people how to adjust certain elements of their forms to make it more on brand with their business. These short blog posts with code snippets ultimately turned into a little side project that I call Dubbins, or Dubsado plugins. This project has since turned into a full-fledged business with a growing community of hundreds of amazing Dubsado people from all different industries. Now, I won't be going into too much depth about full form makeovers and teaching you all about code. That would require an exhaustive amount of time in which, let's be honest, you simply don't have the time for. Today I'll be showing you how to style your Dubsado forms using short code snippets that you'll be able to use, copy, and paste and adjust according to your brand. Super easy, nothing complicated, nothing that'll go way over your head or anything, I promise. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so here we are within Dubsado's dashboard. We're going to go ahead and click Template, Forms, and let's go ahead and add a new lead capture form. Since this is where it all begins, this is where we onboard our prospects and hopefully turn them into clients. And you can see out of the box, Dubsado has several form fields already added. The most important ones to note are email, last name, first name, all required, and all mapped to client name and email. This is important because this allows for the form to be shared publicly. Before we go any further, let's just save the template and head back in, edit. Okay. Pull up your Notes app, or you can write it down, but you'll see if I go to the correct note, there we go, colors and fonts. Just make note of your brand's primary and accent color and the fonts that you use throughout your brand. The colors will be represented by hex codes, which is a 6-digit combination of numbers and or letters, and they're defined by its mix of red, green, or blue, or RGB. And if you don't have your hex number already established, you can go to flatUIcolorpicker.com and sort through all the different colors. If you want purple, there you go. If you want red, make sure you choose hex, and you can just go ahead and copy it. And then go back to your notes and paste it in. And for fonts, Dubsado has, if we are to add a text box, they have their default fonts here. Certainly okay to use as long as they resonate with your brand. But let's say you want to go a little bit further and you want to add your own fonts, your own custom fonts. Well, you can do that fairly easily. I'm using, as you can see from my notes, Calligraphy for my body, H1, H2, H3, and I'll probably create an H4 as well. And what H1, 2, 3, and 4 are, those are all headings. So H1 being your title, H2 subheading, and so forth. I'm using a Google font, so you can go, if you're also using a Google font, you can go to fonts.google.com, and they provide hundreds of different fonts that you're able to use royalty-free. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my font that I'm using, Calligraphy Sans. And I can go ahead and start selecting the styles that I would like to use on my Dubsado form. Alright, there we go. And on this right panel, we're going to copy this code that they provide us, which is a style sheet that'll link back to Google Fonts. That way we can host our fonts from their website for free. And the first thing I'm going to do is add a code block, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the bottom of the form. This is the default phrase that Dubsado uses, hello world, in HTML and inline CSS. Just real quick, just to cover what CSS and HTML are. Not that you absolutely need to know this, but it's good to know, just so you know what you're doing and how things affect one another. So each of the code snippets that I'll be providing you use CSS, which is an acronym for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's a language used to communicate and describe the look of a different language in HTML, or hypertext markup language. And so it's when CSS and HTML talk to one another, that's when the magic happens. And in our case, their language is translated into a beautiful Dubsado form. We'll use CSS to either describe the presentation or look of Dubsado's HTML, their built-in HTML, or the HTML that I will be providing you with each code snippet. Let's go ahead and delete that code and paste in our linked style sheet from Google. And then we're going to head over to one of my tutorials on how to update your fonts and get them together and organized. Before each of the code I provide, I always end up writing a little short blog. You can feel free to read it if you'd like. For the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and copy the code, go back into our Dubsado, code block and paste it in. And you can see over here on the left hand side, we'll go back so you can see the difference. All of our fonts update. There it is before, and there it is with the CSS. Okay, and the code I'm using is actually the font families that Dubsado provides. So Open Sans, Oswald, Laura, and we're going to go back to our Google Fonts and copy the font family. Go back over, and the first line within each of these rule sets, so this is a rule set, that's our body copy, this is a rule set, that's our heading 1, and that's a rule set, that's our heading 2. We're going to change the style of each one of these fonts. And like I said, the first line, just highlight and paste in what we copied over from Google Fonts. And you can see the difference on that left hand side over there. Okay, we're just going to paste in these declarations, and that's the that's a line of code in between the curly braces. That's a curly brace which opens, and that's a curly brace which closes the rule set. Okay, paste all these in. And there we go. And now we can go in and style them even further. Let's say I want to change the color of the body copy. I can just delete the hex code that's already there. And let's just use something generic like red. You can see it's updated to the color red. And let's take our H3 and make that green. You can see text box is now green. And maybe I don't want it italic, so I'll delete that and say, tell it just to be a normal. And we can also change the font size. Let's say we want it smaller or larger. Okay, now that's too large. Let's go back to what I had, 16 pixels. And unless we're doing some sort of campaign for a Christmas get-together, this red and green would make absolutely no sense. So let's go back. Let's go back and change this to a nice gray that's legible, and we'll make the H3 black. Okay, there we go. Let's save our template, and I'm going to go ahead and embed this into the Dubsado or the Dubbins website. So we hit share. We copy the iframe code. I'm using Squarespace. Whatever platform you use, whether it's WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, they should allow you to access their backend HTML and CSS. So I'm going to add an embed block. I'm going to paste in that code, set, apply, save, and then I'm going to refresh the page, and there we go. There it is. Okay. Now let's say I want to make a few other updates. Like, let's say we want the button to be left justified over here instead of right. We can go in, and I will provide you with all these different code snippets. A lot of them, most of the code that I'm showing you today has already been written, and it's within the blog post of the Dubbins website. Okay, so let's copy that, go back to our code block. I'll just go down to the bottom, hit return a few times, and paste it in. Save, overwrite. Oh, and there it is, left justified. Now let's say we want to change the background color of the form. I have a code snippet for you. Again, a brief blog post, just scroll down for now. Feel free to read it if you'd like. Copy the code, head back over to Dubsado and then to your code block and paste it in. And then watch the color on the left-hand side change. There you go. And to change that color, you'll simply update the hex code right here. This is called the value, and it's the value of this property. And the property is background color. The value, I'm telling it to be hex code EF, which is a light gray, but we can make it any color. Let's do red again, just a generic color. There we go. And let's look at the updates. Refresh. And there you have your lead capture form embedded on your website using a different background color. Now let's go ahead and go back to the forms. Let's go up to Dubsado's template library. And you can see they offer dozens of different forms, contracts, questionnaires for several different industries. And we're looking for a proposal to use. Calligrapher, invitation details. That seems perfect. Let's go ahead with that. Sally Sanders Calligraphy. All right, Sally. Let's see what your form's all about. And just from scrolling, you can see it's pretty plain. And that's okay. Maybe that's good for Sally's business. Not too many visuals. For me, there's a few. I like to add photography, graphics, and really, tell a story and show what my business is all about. And in that case, for a Tierney Studio client, it would show more of projects that I've done, perhaps what I can offer with some different photos here and there, just to make the form a little bit more engaging. So let's go ahead and copy that to the account. And we're going to start off with adding a header. Now, Sally has her header right here, and it's in the form of her logo, which is fine, but let's add a background photograph. And we can do that by going up to unsplash.com. Again, this is a great resource if you don't have any photography and you'd like to use royalty-free stock photos. So let's search calligraphy. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and this one looks good. Download for free. And if you'd like, you can mention the photographer within your Dubsado form, or even have code that you can use to reference back to this particular photo to give the photographer some credit. And then I'd like to introduce you to TinyPNG. And TinyPNG is perfect for compressing your graphics and your photography so that ultimately your website, or in this case a Dubsado form, will load faster because it compresses it. We're going to go ahead and choose our photo that we just downloaded from Unsplash, and we're going to download it. And you can see we saved almost 50%. And what TinyPNG does is it retains the quality of the graphic or photograph. So it keeps the image quality there, but it just gets rid of a lot of the fluff that's not needed. That can oftentimes slow down your website. We're going to head back over to Dubsado, and we're going to add an image. Click. And you can see I've already uploaded the image, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Let's drag a code block to the top of the form. And if you recall, before I told you to copy code or drag code blocks to the bottom of your form, but since we're using our own HTML to create a header, not Dubsado's built-in HTML, placement is important. And because we're creating a header, we want it at the top. So we'll go ahead and copy the code that I've provided. We'll paste it in. Oh, and you'll see this is a good example. I only pasted in the CSS. And because there's no HTML, the CSS has nothing to talk to. It's just alone by itself. So let's paste in the HTML, and there we go. There it is. Now let's right-click on this photo, because we want this photo to be our header. Let's copy the image address, delete, go back into our code, find the URL, and there's your header. Now if we want to add in Sally's logo, I believe this is an image, not saved as a PNG. It could be, but either way it was saved with a white background. And just as an example, I'll copy that image address and let's paste it in. Yeah, see, it was saved with a white background, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and just delete Sally's logo. Sorry, Sally. And let's add the Dubbins logo. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. Copy image address, delete, click on our code, find the URL, paste, and there you have it. So let's go ahead and save this form. Okay, and if we want to view this publicly, because as you can see right now, we're not able to share it, which means it's not a public form. But let's say we still want to view it. We'll copy the URL, we'll paste it, and this is a little trick that you can do to override the form being private. Add public before form, add a /, and then where edit is, type in view. And there's our header. Now if we want to see this as the prospect would, this yellow bar wouldn't be here, and there might be some other buttons at the bottom, you know, the submit button that would show. So we want to view this in what's called an incognito window. That's basically saying it's telling your browser that we are not signed into Dubsado, so we should not have to see it as we would with our account. And there you go. That's how we're going to be viewing it. All right. Let's minimize that window. Keep it there as a reference. Let's bring it back up real quick, actually. I don't have a need for this download PDF button. Some of you might. For me, if they got into this point, the proposal's already within their portal, so they can access it at any time. There's no need to download the PDF. Also, I add a lot of custom code, and if they do download the PDF, it's not going to look right. The code will mess with the download, and ultimately the PDF will be rendered useless. So let's go ahead and delete that, or remove that PDF, download PDF button. That's actually one of my first tutorials, and it's as easy as copying. We can actually just use this code block, because it's just CSS that we're using, and we can paste it in. Close, save, overwrite, and then let's refresh this page. Boom, PDF, download PDF button, all gone. All right. And I realize a lot of you might use Canva or Photoshop, and you add your text on top of your photos and then save it as an image and then bring it into Dubsado. That's fine. If that works for you, that's great. The problem is for me, and this is the difference between using code and images, you're able to have much more flexibility with code. Your forms will be more responsive. There won't be any pixelization going on. It'll be clear, and especially if you're doing this on your website, it's important to use actual text as opposed to an image of text. For SEO purposes, Google likes to see real text, and it won't be able to read an image of text. So that is fairly important. And you can see if we were to resize the browser here, everything adjusts according to the size of the browser, the text, the photo, without any pixelation. So it's a good practice, but again, not completely necessary. It's just something that I prefer. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's give these horizontal lines, they're technically called horizontal rulers, let's give them a little style, and let's make them a little bit more on brand. We can click into, again, we can click into this code block. Placement's not necessary because we're just using CSS here. I'm going to copy the code, paste it in. There you go. There's the color change. I'll make it a little bit more prominent, and let's call it red again. You can see. And we can change the thickness of it. It was at 1 pixel, and you can make it 2, 3, 4, and so on. If you want to give it a little bit more space above, you can change the margin. There we go. Sometimes you need the important property to make changes that overrides a lot of the system's default code. See? And now we have our new HR horizontal rulers with a little bit more breathing room. But again, let's change that back to my color. So I'm going to go back to my reference list, primary color, and I'm going to change it right there. And I'm going to make it a little thicker. Check it out. Now let's add a few code snippets. We're going to go into settings here. Let's say show contract and show invoice. We're going to save. Pull our form back up, refresh. Okay. Now when I click contract, yep, there it is. This is a warning, and it's using Dubsado's default colors. Please submit the form before viewing the contract. Now I want that warning to be more on brand with Dubbins. So I'm going to find the code. There it is. Copy it, go back to my form, and again I can just keep adding here because it's just CSS, and I'll paste it in, and the property background color has a value of my brand color. Close, save. Let's bring it back up, refresh, and there's our new color. And while it is just a warning, element pop up, it's not as distracting as the orange. Now we're using our colors. And oftentimes you'll see when your form is loading, I'm not sure if ours will do this right now, it depends upon a lot of things. Let's see, it did not show. You'll see on the top of your forms a loading bar in Dubsado's color, their brand color. So we can change that to ours. How to change the loading bar color on your Dubsado forms. You'll just copy to clipboard, go back into your code, and again it's just CSS. We're going to paste. Okay, and we're going to update our color right there. Background. Background will be the property, and the value is your brand color. Let's see. And actually Dubbins is using a color close to Dubsado's brand color, so you won't be able to tell much of a difference here. But let's just go ahead and use that red. Close, save, and let's see if it does it up here. Sometimes you'll see the loading bar here. I'm going to copy that. New incognito window. Let's see if we can see the loading bar in red. No, we won't see it here. But I promise you that loading bar color will change if you update the code. Now let's say we want to present a form to our prospect or client, but we won't be needing the form titles at the top. Maybe that just doesn't make sense. Maybe it's not necessary. Well, I have a code snippet for you. How to hide your Dubsado form names. Just go ahead and copy it. Copy the code. And again, this is just CSS, so you just can keep stacking it on top of one another. And I have them all, I have each of these code snippets named so that you'll easily be able to reference them. And there you have it. Save. No more form names. let's say, for an example, you don't have a contract or invoice that are connected to your proposal, and maybe you just don't want that lone proposal name up top. Well, this would be a perfect time to use that code then. Or let's say you want your form names, but you want them to read differently. You want to have different form names. We'll go ahead and delete that code we just added to bring back the form names. And how to change Dubsado form names. We'll click on that, go down to the code, copy. So this is the first part of the code. We'll paste that in, and you'll see we hide the name first, visibility hidden, and then we make it visible. So instead of proposal, we hide proposal, the name proposal, and then we update it with quote. And say we want to call it the form a quote. And let's say instead of contract we want terms, and instead of invoice we want cart. You just update it right here, cart, terms, right in between the single quotes and quote. We save, check out our form, quote, terms, cart. But you'll notice they look a little off-centered compared to the magic line beneath of them. So to fix that, if you go back to the tutorial, you go back to the tutorial and there's more code beneath to fix the margin so that we can center them again. Click within your code block, go down, and paste it in. So I'm moving it to the left 30 pixels. That should help. Let's see when we refresh. Yeah, there we go. Now they're nice and centered. Just so you're aware, since there's no code block on your contract or invoice, after someone submits your proposal, your form names will go back to proposal, contract, invoice here up top. So if that bothers you, then maybe this code isn't best for you. Hopefully one day Dubsado will allow us access to their have a code block to use within their contract and invoice. But until then, we can use this. Okay. So now you can see we're starting to style our form. It's becoming a little bit more branded to, in this case, my business, Dubbins. But this is only the beginning. This is just touching on updating your forms. There's many more things you can do, and I'm going to show you that right now. Here we are inside of the designer template, and this is where it all began. This was my way of turning Dubsado forms into a work of art. And this is the access page, which consists of over 20 custom plugins and tested by hundreds of Dubsado people from all different industries, and it's designed to work together to make up one cohesive form. To show you a few examples, here we have a off-site reception business, and they use the template to create a proposal. This is one of my favorites. And then here's another one. And this person's using it as a questionnaire to onboard people who are interested in being interviewed on her podcast. So you can see all these different plugins. We have the footer down here. We have a banner, a timeline, another banner. This is what we call a welcome banner mixed with a header. And if we refresh it, you might be able to see the animation. Yep, there we go. It's a slide up animation. And this is another proposal. This is actually using a lead capture form, believe it or not. And Sarah, she's a calligrapher and designer, works with stationery. You can see the testimonial slider and the footer here, and down here is the fix bottom nav plugin. You click back to top and it'll bring you right there, and this button's perfect for if you have longer forms. I do offer this one for free on the Dubbins website, this fix bottom nav. And here's my example. Actually, here's my website, and I just wanted to show you how you can create these Dubsado forms and have them directly relate back to your website. So here's my website, and here's my example Dubsado form. There's Elmo. Here's a carousel plugin. Image blocks. More timelines. And here's our package plugin. You can select it. Here's our drop-down packages, in case you sell tiers of a particular product. And you can even style your forms, your form fields, your calendar to be more on brand. Here's an FAQ. Forgive the dad jokes here, but it gets people's attention, maybe gets a laugh or two. Testimonial slider, and then footer. And all of this can be done using the Dubbins designer template. You can see it's filled with several different plugins to use, with instructions. What it looks like, the HTML, all you do is copy. And let's go ahead and do this right now, actually. Let's copy the HTML. Let's go back to our form. Let's replace the existing HTML that we used. And this is how easy it is. You just copy, and paste in there. We almost have our header. Again, copy image address. And I tell you exactly where you need to paste this in within the access page. Now we're going to add our logo. we'll save it. Let's check out the updates. Okay, and that's the header. We can add section banners, a to-top button, welcome banner. Let's go ahead and add the vertical timeline. This seems to be a favorite among the Dubbins community. Copy. We'll add a code block, paste, and you can see the code. This is just the HTML showing without the CSS. It doesn't do very much. So now we have to add the styling so that we can make this vertical timeline look good. Go back into the code, paste in the CSS, and there's the vertical timeline. And you'll notice that the colors might not be, or there definitely won't be your brand colors, but again, within the access page, I tell you exactly where you need to update. So it's relatively easy. And we have date pickers, checkbox, testimonial slider, accordion dropdown, form fields, everything you need to make your form stand out. Let's go ahead and save that. Check the live view, refresh, and now it's coming together. So you can see there's so much you can do with code. You can transform your entire Dubsado questionnaire, proposal, lead capture form. And here's another example. I'm signed in right now, so it'll say, hello, business owner. This was all built within a Dubsado proposal form. And you can see I've added a navigation, a sliding navigation, some pop-out modules that if you click on it, it shows you how to find your hex code, how to optimize your images, which we went over, and how to retrieve your image URLs, which we also went over. And I built this originally so that people had a way to access my free testimonial slider plugin, which any of you can access as well when you sign up to the newsletter over on Dubbins.com. This was an early generator, and I'll show you what it does. So you can input all your brands, colors, your styles that you prefer, your fonts, into this generator, right? So let's just go ahead and click generate code out of the box, okay? Let's see what it does. It uses my Tierney Studio styling. So that's the preview, and that's the code. So instead of having to go in and remove certain bits and pieces of code and update it, I created this generator to make it super easy. All right, so background color, let's go 6E, 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 which is a gray. The border radius, let's give it 10 pixels. Secondary color, let's say we'll just give it red. quote color will say blue, source color will say green, and large quotation mark color purple. Now, normally you'd want to use your hex code for this, but for now, this will work. First quote, "Hey there, how are you?" Question mark. Source name. I'll just write in my name. And so you can see a live update. There's the preview down here. And we're going to update the code. There we go. Okay, so we have new code now. And there's our hideous looking testimonial slider. And now when you click generate code, it automatically copies the code to your clipboard. So all you'd have to do is head back over to your Dubsado form, drag a code block, remove the example code, and just paste it in, and there it is. And that's how easy it is to add these plugins to your Dubsado forms. Here's another one. This is a free accordion drop-down menu. Here's the example with my unamusing humor. And again, you can add your background color. Let's say red, border radius 0, top border color blue, separator color green, separator width, we'll just go ahead and say 1 pixel, arrow color purple. And you can see you can keep updating it. In the first question, what's your name? And we'll generate the code, copy to clipboard. Oh my. See, what's your name? And you can keep adding more questions and responses. Of course, you would do that all up here. Again, the code is copied to my clipboard. Just add a code block, delete, paste. There it is. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, while the template allows you to add all this code and create beautiful forms, I kind of wanted to show you what's to come in the future of Dubbins. Because while this is an early example of our generator that we're building, I wanted to show you and introduce you to Genie the generator. Now this is not built within a Dubsado form. It's a little too complex. This is a fully custom site that we are building, and it's been a long process and an iterative process for sure. But I just want to show you how easy it's going to be to update your plugins and add them to your forms. So let's start off with the header. That's where we are. And you can choose between a photo, a background color. If we choose a background color, the background color field comes up. We can turn it gray or red. Let's go back to photo for now. And we can update all these fields for changing our logos and the click-throughs. When someone clicks on the logo, we can change the logo color, the background position, the header photo height, the logo width, gradient overlay. We can make it darker or lighter. Maybe we don't want to show the logo, or maybe right now we have parallax effect on. Let's turn that off. Let's try a different animation. So right now we have a slide up. Let's actually show the logo. slide up, fade in, or zoom in. Let's turn it off for now. And here's the content that we can update. Test, testing, and we can change the font, the color, the size, the weight, the spacing, the line height, and so forth. You get the idea. This is what's to come. And we can save it. Colin's testing again, so that we can access this at a later time. We can reset it. Let's go ahead and go back to our testing. See? It saves all of our info. And let's say you are someone who sets up other people in their Dubsado, and part of your service is form design. Well, we have a membership for that. It's called Dub Plus. Yes, I'm riding the plus trend mill, like Disney, and I'm sure there's others out there. But this is a growing membership. We have dozens of people in the group right now who are kind of beta testing this and testing out how they're able to help their clients using Dubbins. And you know, as you can see, you can save several different clients in here, and all their information will be in the back end right here. Client A, client B, C. So you can adjust each one of your clients in their brand settings, their social media, their typography, their logo, their websites, and then you're able to just with a click change it up. And that's with all of our plugins. Of course, you're only seeing a handful here, but there's much more to come. And that's where we're at with Dub Plus. Now, you don't have to be a member to be able to access this. While it's not ready at this time, it will be very soon. And if you jump on the quarantine sale, which you can find at Dubbins.com under templates, designer. This is our special quarantine sale that's going on. And if you decide this template is for you, or maybe you don't need all those customizations, that's fine too. We have plenty of tutorials here to make your Dubsado, or begin to make your Dubsado forms look and perform a little bit better. But again, if you are interested in the template, hop on that quarantine sale, and when it's ready, you'll be able to access the Genie and have the ability to customize your forms with so much more ease. And there you have it. As you can see, customizing your Dubsado forms doesn't have to be labor or time intensive at all. It's as easy as copying, pasting, and adjusting. Though you can see from my example of what's to come, it'll be an even easier process. And I can't wait to have you use the Genie when it's all ready. If you're interested in adding more plugins and customizations to your forms, head over to dubbins.com/the designer template. That's dub-ins.com, the-designer-template. And be sure to hop on that special quarantine sale that's going on right now. And when the generator is up and ready, you'll have exclusive access to this one-of-a-kind platform. If you're someone who sets up Dubsado for people and you're interested in the membership, be sure to reach out very soon so you can get in on that exclusive Dub Plus membership before the price goes up. If you'd like to try out the free plugins, the testimonial sliders, the drop-down FAQ with an earlier generator that we built, feel free to sign up to the newsletter over on Dubbins.com to get access. Or if you don't feel like signing up to yet another newsletter, I get it, you might be able to find those plugins on the Dubsado Facebook community through a search. But I would be remiss not to mention that my newsletter subscribers are always the first to hear about new plugins and tutorials. So it might be beneficial to you if you got anything out of today's webinar. Again, thank you so much to Dubsado and to you for tuning in, and to Becca for inviting me to help you up your form game. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on all major social media platforms at Tierney Studio. That's TIERNEYSTUDIO. Or you can reach out via the contact form on Dubbins.com. You can find all the different tutorials and blog posts that I just went over by going into Dubbins.com/learn. Thank you so much.